Trump issues a new warning saying any day now, the January 6th indictment could be coming. And we've long been suspecting it was going to be any day now. We've actually been surprised it's taking this long because we've got some competing indictments now. We've got Georgia, which is apparently coming any minute now also. And we've got these two prosecutions, one at the federal level, one at the state level, about to launch at the same time. And what do they say? Well, we have to break it down. We've got Fani Willis, who is leading the Georgia prosecution, and she apparently is not even coordinating with Jack Smith at all. And the Georgia Supreme Court just gave her the green light to move her prosecution forward. And so if Jack Smith doesn't go soon, she's going, and that might interfere with what Jack Smith is doing. And so the whole thing is just a mess, like the rest of these prosecutions. But this is part of their strategy. They want to bleed the Trump campaign dry, bleed his staff, his finances to the bone so that they cannot be used on other efforts like getting out the vote or spending money on commercials or fundraising or policy development or any of the other things that happens in a campaign. But Trump said it's coming, and he posted this on True Social. He said, I assume that an indictment from deranged Jack Smith and his highly partisan gang of thugs pertaining to my, quote, peacefully and patriotically speech will be coming out any day now, as yet another attempt to cover up all of the bad news about bribes, payoffs, extortion coming from the Biden camp. This seems to be the way they do it. Election interference, prosecutorial misconduct, exclamation, exclamation. And of course, we know that the grand jury is meeting soon, and the Hill tells us it could be Tuesday, it could be Thursday as this thing heats up. They posted this. They say target letters have already gone out. A number of Trump officials have testified in recent weeks. Prosecutors are still interested in whether Trump acknowledged that he had lost the election. If Trump said to somebody, look, I know I lost, but do that thing anyways, then that is Trump committing fraud. And they're digging hard to squeeze that out of somebody. Prosecutors are said to have been interested in this for a while. Trump pursued, they call it a multi-pronged plan to remain in office. Former President Trump's attorneys met last week with officials from Jack Smith's office. Trump called it a productive meeting as they tried to stop him from bringing charges. But a grand jury meets Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so we're going to be extra perked up on Tuesday and Thursday of this week to see if anything happens on the January 6th case. But that is just the next indictment on the list. We've also got the Georgia prosecution, which is heating up as well. But some interesting things are happening here. No coordination between the feds and the state, which is a little bit different than what we've seen in other jurisdictions. We know that in New York, for example, Alvin Bragg has deferred or has indicated that he will defer to Jack Smith's prosecution. When you've got people with multiple criminal charges, they can't be in two trials at the same time. Trump can't be in a New York trial the same time he's in a Florida trial, the same time he's in a Georgia trial, the same time he's in a DC trial. And so what happens is when that situation arises, prosecutors will often say, I will defer to you. You bring your case first. You have the strongest case, or however they want to organize it. In this case, because it's the federal government versus the state government, the feds reign supreme. So Bragg is taking the sideline, allowing Jack Smith to go forward. What's happening here in Georgia? Not so much that. Very strange. Fulton DA says she's not coordinating with special counsel Jack Smith, and she warns of safety risks as indictments loom. And here is Fani, the biggest Fani in Georgia. And, I look around in these photos to see if there's somebody who, who's higher up person than her, and I don't see anybody. Sometime in the next 3 weeks, Fulton County DA is expected to ask a grand jury to indict multiple people, so it's not just Trump. July 31st is the first of 10 days between now and August 18th that Willis has instructed most of her staff to work remotely. You guys don't even come into the office. That window comes as the US DOJ, with Jack Smith, is also preparing to bring charges for January 6th. Willis says that the two investigations have not coordinated. She said the following, I don't know what Jack Smith is doing, and Jack Smith doesn't know what I'm doing, Willis told Wabe, W-A-B-E, in a Saturday interview. She says, in all honesty, if Jack Smith was standing next to me, I'm not sure I would know who he was. My guess is he probably can't pronounce my name correctly. Oh, I don't know what's so hard about it. It's Fani, right? I'm pretty sure it's Fani. I mean, I heard Rachel Maddow call her Fani. Very weird way she said it. Fani, like Fani Willis. And it's like, Rachel, that's not accurate. You're wrong about that, just like everything else you're wrong about. God, golly, it's very easy. F-A-N-I. Fani Willis. All right, former President Trump, who is also a focus of Fulton County probe, received a target letter in the federal investigation. We know that. Charging decisions are looming in D.C. and Atlanta. Orange security barriers went up around the courthouse on Thursday. The Fulton County Sheriff's Office is proactively coordinating with local agencies. Some of the measures we're deploying will be obvious to the public. Trump's already been indicted twice now. Has anything happened at all? There's that one guy with the air horn, which was very annoying. As those security measures began to take effect, Willis spent Saturday handing out backpacks stuffed with school supplies. She mingled with staffers as they handed out backpacks. Willis says constituents absolutely ask about the Trump probe. She says she can't answer them. We've got other concerns like, gang violence. Yeah, that's a small little thing next to this Trump insurrection. She says, we're not one-dimensional, right? I can do that case and make sure that justice is served, but while making sure, as you see, the murder rate is dropping in Atlanta. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, she says. Some critics of Willis's probe have questioned whether devoting these significant resources to potentially prosecuting Trump will come at a cost of a backlog of violent crime. Is it worth it? Willis says she never doubted whether the probe was worthwhile. Absolutely not. There are some moments that are troubling and concerning, she said, but those moments are based on some of the racist comments that get sent to me. Oh gosh. Either via voicemail or email or on social media. It saddens me. Oh, this racist. Willis says she sent an email to county commissioners on Saturday instructing them to make sure they're keeping themselves and their staff safe, and included a taste of the hateful messages she receives. Now, I don't endorse any racist comments or any racism, and I've made this warning many times. Calling and leaving voicemails to elected officials or threatening elected officials on text messages, or Joe Biden was doing that trap where he said, text me what you think of me on his Twitter account. Just text me your thoughts on my existence. Dangerous, very dangerous. They will arrest and prosecute people for those crimes. I guarantee people are being contacted from that list. So we always discourage this, but I just love how everything always devolves to racism for some reason. Willis's email included a recent messages. Somebody called her a corrupt expletive. You're gonna fail, expletive. This is serious, Willis says. We have people, unfortunately, that think like this. It's kind of foreign to me. I have this really diverse office, right? She says. We serve this diverse community. Diverse people chose me, but yet we have people that are still so ignorant. And so, I have to deal with that reality, but that reality will not deter me from my work. Now, the judge in Georgia, the Supreme Court, Trump was trying to stop this case from moving forward. On Monday, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Robert McBurney rejected Trump's motion, refused to grant a similar one earlier in the month. Let's take a look at that filing. Here it is. Donald Trump's team in Georgia submitted a motion to quash the special grand jury to stop the investigation that was bubbling up against Trump in Georgia. They wanted to ask everybody who was involved to recuse themselves and to preclude certain evidence. There was a motion filed, oral arguments. This is the ruling. This is what clears the road, green lights Fannie's efforts. And here is what the filing says. From the Superior Court, Fulton County, state of Georgia. It says on March 20th of this year, Trump filed a motion to quash the grand jury, to stop them, to stop the state from using any evidence that they got. The grand jury issued subpoenas, went and got evidence, interviewed people, and so on. So preclude them from using the evidence and disqualify Fannie's office from further investigation. Now, we're crossing into this new era in America where things are now, there's a new threshold that has been crossed where we are prosecuting openly our political enemies. Joe Biden runs the DOJ, hates Trump, has made statements on the record. We're going to stop him and stuff like that. Well, he's doing it using his DOJ. And so we have this new problem that the courts are going to have to grapple with, which are naked and outright political prosecutions in this country. And it's going to be very difficult for the courts to deviate from the default presumption that the DA's office is legitimate. I mean, what's the court going to say? The whole DA's office is disqualified? Huge order. And so Trump is asking for that. Now, from the judge's perspective, that's a huge ask, but we're also in unprecedented times. And so Trump is asking for things to correct a catastrophic failure of the executive branch, which is to operate within the confines and not go outside of the bounds of the rules of American precedents, which is that we don't prosecute our political enemies in this country. They're going to break those bounds. Trump is saying this is a tainted partisan political prosecutor's office. The whole thing needs to be disqualified, but you can just feel how big of an ask that is. So Trump makes that request. On April of this year, one of the alternate presidential electors advanced by Georgia's Republican Party after 2020 filed a motion joining Trump's motion. Get rid of this special grand jury. The DA responded, Fannie, with 2 motions, and the media did the same. A bunch of other people filed motions, and the record was complete. Having reviewed the pleadings, everything that we just discussed, the court now finds that neither Trump nor Latham, the elector, enjoys standing to even mount a challenge at this pre-indictment phase of the proceedings. So Trump hasn't been charged yet. They're just investigating. They can continue to do this. They say that Trump and their injuries, quote, that would open the doors of the courthouse to their claims are insufficient. The judge says they are insufficient because while being the subject of a highly publicized criminal investigation is certainly unwelcome and unpleasant, yeah, it sucks being charged with a crime. Excuse my language. No court ever has held that that status alone is the basis to interfere with or halt the investigation. Trump knew this, and now Latham does too. No doubt the threat of prosecution can weigh heavily on anyone's mind, but without diminishing the seriousness of the burden, in, the ordinary experience cannot support extraordinary jurisdiction. Court doesn't have the ability to tell them to stop doing what they're doing. That's their job, is to investigate crimes. This is new territory because, again, this is presuming that these agencies are operating legitimately. And every time they prosecute Trump, they undermine their own legitimacy. And eventually that will have consequences. Now, when that consequence reaches the court is a whole separate story, if ever. We don't know. But the judge continues. They say that the professed injuries from Trump are also speculative and unrealized. He hasn't been harmed yet. There is no even indictment yet. They're just theorizing about evidence that they got. They don't even know what they've got. So the possibility that they might be charged is not enough. They say that Trump alleges that information that the grand jury got is fatally tainted because of some missteps by the supervising judge and the grand jury. He says that's not enough. And there are sound policy reasons to defer these complaints until the indictment. So just because Trump loses now doesn't mean that maybe these claims aren't valid later. But at this early stage, it's just not ready. Prosecution is an executive function. The judicial branch should involve itself sparingly and delicately in the work that precedes the formal charges. After the charges are brought, the locus of power and authority and jurisdiction, then it shifts to the courts. Right. And this is where you can see them using this like both a sword and a shield. When Hunter Biden is being charged with crimes, they keep him under the purview, under the wing of the DOJ, which is the executive branch. Then when they let go of it, when they try to bring it over into the courts with Hunter to resolve everything, it turned into a giant catastrophe. The whole plea deal exploded because the courts operated as fair and neutral arbiter that was exposing this corrupt deal. And so that principle stays here as well. If the court were to interfere at that early stage, it's stepping outside of bounds, essentially. Arguments like those being made here in the pending motions have already been ruled upon. Guessing at what the picture might look like before the dots are connected might be a popular game for the media and the blogosphere, but it's not a proper role for the courts. There will be a time and place where Trump can raise his issues, but that is not now. If anything results from the grand jury, should either or both be indicted, they can raise all these issues later. So they're saying they're not going to be quashing this special grand jury. Unnecessary to go into a deeper analysis here. And they're also not going to disqualify Fannie. Trump and Latham seek to have the DA Fannie and her office disqualified from any involvement. This is a bold request, they say. A significant showing must be made to grant this uncommon relief. There are two primary grounds for disqualifying a prosecuting attorney. It's tough. Conflict of interest and forensic misconduct. Neither has been shown here. The conflicts of interest that typically suffice to support a motion to disqualify rise when a prosecutor previously represented a defendant, when she consulted with a defendant, when there's been some sort of work, or forensic misconduct when forensic misconduct occurs, for example, when the prosecutor improperly expresses, quote, her personal belief in the defendant's guilt. Has Fannie not done that? We can't find a clip of Fannie out there saying Trump's guilty. None of that has happened yet. There's no evidence or even contention that the DA ever represented Trump, so no conflict, nor is there evidence of any direct financial conflict. Neither movement have pointed to any averments by the DA or her team of lawyers expressing belief that Trump is guilty. Rather, the consistent and persistent theme has been pursuing the evidence where it leads, holding everyone accountable, no one being above the law. The drumbeat has been neither partisan in the political sense, nor personal, in marked and refreshing contrast to the stream of personal invective, flowing from one of the movements. That's a dig at Trump. Oh, that's a Trump dig. This judge is saying, no, Fannie's fantastic. She's been just a consummate professional. And Trump has been degrading this case with a constant stream of personal invective flowing from his thumbs. Wow, untruth. Put differently, the DA's office has been doing a fairly routine, legally unobjectionable job of PR in a case that's anything but routine. Tell that to the DOJ. They keep saying this is a regular, routine, ordinary case. That's not even a big deal. None of what Trump cites rises to the level of justifying disqualification. All of it falls short. Prosecutor is not a neutral party, doesn't need to pretend to be. She has a cause she is sworn to pursue. And in pursuit of justice, right, she is necessarily a partisan in the case. If she were compelled to proceed with the same circumspection as the judge and the jury, she wouldn't be a prosecutor. Therefore, Trump, your motions are denied. And so this will move forward, and Fannie has now a green light to just prosecute away, and certainly she will. And the question is when. And meanwhile, as all this goes on, we've got people like Adam Schiff and Psaki who are celebrating from the rooftops. They love love this legal warfare, this battle that marches on. It consumes time, it consumes money and energy. And money is a big component of this, because if they can tie up $40 million in the courts with lawyers and defense teams and all the costs associated with defending yourself against 4 indictments, I don't know how many civil lawsuits, very expensive. And they can't use that for other services like hiring people, spending on commercials, social media ads, developing the message, getting out the vote, all part of the plan.
$40 million of legal costs for Trump was spent by his PACs and by his essentially entities paying for his campaign just this year alone. What was your reaction when you saw that?
Well, it is eye-popping, but it also shows, I think, by one powerful metric, how much Donald Trump's running for presidency is part of his strategy to keep out of jail. This is all about the hope that he becomes the next office holder and he can make all these legal problems go away as the next president. And he's willing to spend, whatever campaign contributions come his way to represent anyone that is deemed loyal to him. And the problem with this is we saw in the January 6th investigation how Trump appointed defense counsel for witnesses. In one case in particular, we're suggesting to a witness, hey, you should say you don't remember these things, even if you do remember them. It allows the Trump defense team basically to get their stories. Control them, to get their stories all aligned, to coach witnesses to say they forgot things that they do remember. So it's problematic from a point of justice point of view, but I think this is what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it'd be weird if you had, like some massive entity that had the ability to put a ton of insane leverage on people, threaten them with prison for the rest of their lives, threaten lawyers with not getting judgeships, literally create deals for the president's son that let him walk free while offering simultaneous deals to other people that lock them up. This is exactly what the DOJ is doing, exactly what the Biden DOJ is doing every single day. 4 indictments, multiple civil suits brought by people prosecuting Trump for made-up 20-year-old stories, in my humble opinion, and they couldn't be happier about it. And as is the usual norm, when they're doing something, they turn around and blame the other side. They say, see what they're doing. Meanwhile, they're doing it behind our backs. So we've also got Alina Habba, who, as we know, is a brilliant legal commentator, works with the Trump team. She was out on the Sunday shows defending the superseding indictment, which dropped. The superseding indictment, as we know, added a new defendant and new charges in the Donald Trump classified documents case taking place out of Florida. Here is Trump Representative Ms. Habba discussing.
Nomination for the White House facing intense legal pressure. Indictments in 2 cases and under investigation in at least 2 others. New charges this week in a case that accuses him of mishandling classified documents, and potential indictments in a case alleging attempts to overturn the 2020 election, including January 6th and alleged interference in Georgia, where this week barricades were placed outside the Fulton County Courthouse ahead of possible charges there. Joining us now, Alina Habba, legal spokesperson for former President Trump and general counsel for the Save America Leadership PAC. Alina, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, so let's start here. The president said on Thursday he felt his legal team, attorneys, had good meetings with the Justice Department. That afternoon, he had been indicted on new federal criminal charges. Was that a shock to you? Are you bracing for the next indictment?
Yeah, nothing is a shock to me anymore coming out from this Department of Justice, this Biden administration. As President Trump mentioned, meritless Garland, group of people. Let's be clear, this is election interference. So, no, the charges are never a surprise to us because they can't stop him. He's got 18% turned of independence towards Trump. And this is what happens when you're winning in the polls and the Democrats can't win. They have nothing left to do.
Okay, let's talk about another poll. This one comes out this week showing a majority of Americans, 51%, now do believe that President Trump did something illegal. Another 27% think he did something at least unethical. So how do you overcome that perception with jurors? That's the first step, and also with voters.
I think with the facts. So let's talk about the facts, which the American people need to know. In that indictment, the new superseding indictment that came out, which they tried to get another headline for President Trump, was facts that said that President Trump did what? What was the obstruction of justice? Because no tapes were deleted. He turned them over. He cooperated, as he always does. But they would like the American public to believe in these bogus indictments that there are some facts that say that President Trump was obstructing justice. When he has his turn in court and when we get to file our papers, you will see that every single video, every single surveillance tape that was requested was turned over. If President Trump didn't want something turned over, I assure you that is something that could have been done, but he never would act like that. Okay, he is the most ethical American I know.
Let's talk about the indictment, because you bring this up and there are allegations now that he, with a couple of other employees, employees at Mar-a-Lago had conversations. There are allegations about trying to get rid of surveillance video once it was under subpoena. So let me read from the indictment. This is the new superseding indictment. De Oliveira, the property manager there at Mar-a-Lago, told Trump employee 4 that, quote, the boss wanted the server deleted. This is where the surveillance video was. Trump employee 4 responded that he would not know how to do that and that he did not believe he had the rights to do that. Trump employee 4 told De Oliveira that De Oliveira would have to reach out to another employee who was a supervisor of security for Trump's business organization. De Oliveira then insisted to Trump employee 4 that, quote, the boss wanted the server deleted and asked, what are we going to do? You rightly say that the tapes were turned over. I mean, they're in custody of the Justice Department, but the question is, was there an attempt to try to make sure that didn't happen?
Well, let's be clear. If there was an attempt by somebody who lives in a home, take out President Trump, who owns a company, he owns it, he owns the IT, he pays for all these employees. If there was an attempt for him to not turn over documents or he wanted something deleted, do you not think that that's something he couldn't have gotten done? Let's just use common sense.
Does it sound
I think
like
the American
there was
public
an
forgets
effort
to use common sense.
I mean, that's the allegation, is that he did try to talk to these employees and that these employees said, we may have to talk to someone else. I don't know that I can even do that.
Shannon, I know the facts, and the facts are when President Trump gets a subpoena, it goes to the organization turns it over. That is what actually happened. I've been an attorney for the president during this whole process, and I can assure you that is not the case.
Okay, well, innocent until proven guilty. He will have his day in court, and we will watch as that plays out. Alina, thank you for joining us again.
Thanks, Alina.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Brilliant legal analysis as per usual. And it's an interesting conversation. I mean, we don't really know the details from what we read in the indictment of the server, what was on the server, and then we want to see what the scope of the subpoena was, in other words. And there's a lot of gray area there, and it's a lot of we're asking ourselves, who are the witnesses? If they're charging that guy, De Oliveira, with a crime, obviously he's not going to be testifying for the government. So who do they have, and what evidence do they have that shows that relationship? And then how are they getting that evidence admitted into court? What witness is going to be the person they use to lay the foundation to get all of that admitted? Big question. How's Trump doing? Obviously 4 indictments piling up, plus a superseding indictment. Not really ideal. Alina tells us how he's doing.
Alina, I know you're down there with him right now, and you probably have a lot to discuss. But, look, I consider myself a pretty tough guy. This would have crushed me mentally and physically, years ago. How is he doing personally?
This has been his life, Carl. Honestly, for the better of a decade, this has been his family's life, his kids, his wife, all of them, and they're resilient and strong. And I really can't tell the American public more that this is another day for him. He is a fighter. He is fighting for everybody. And the more they try and hurt him, frankly, the more he believes in this country getting back and trying to get in to get it back. I really think that's his motivation. And this has been a motivational factor, frankly, for everybody to see this corruption and try and get back and fight it and clean it up, because this is in America and he loves this country.
And it seems like every time he does get indicted, people recognize how illegitimate the DOJ is. And so the more indictments there are, it almost as though it delegitimizes the prior indictments. Oh, a 3rd indictment now? Oh, great. Oh, a 4th indictment now? Oh, why don't you make it 5? We should indict him 5. Oh, 6 indictments. And we'll just have so many indictments that people they'll stop having meaning. It's just like other things that they scream at us for. And they just have no meaning anymore because they abuse them to death. And we can see the DOJ is as illegitimate as they've ever been, but they're going to be bringing a new indictment any day now. Trump warns.